Okay, let's talk about a diagnosis that can send a chill down anyone's spine. Low ovarian reserve. Hearing those words can feel so final, like a number has been stamped on your fertility and that's the end of the story. But today, we're going to pull back the curtain and really get into why that number might not be the main character in your story at all. Let's dive in. So you get the test results, you see that number, and your heart just sinks. The first thought is almost always, well, that's it. My chances are lower now. But what if I told you that by focusing only on the number of eggs, you're missing a much bigger, much more powerful piece of the puzzle? What if there's another factor you can actually do something about? Now, you might have even heard this statement before, and it's a fascinating one because, it's kind of true, but it's also kind of false. Here's the true part. If you're, say, 30 years old and you ovulate one egg this month, your shot at getting pregnant can be the exact same as another 30-year-old with a super high reserve. Why? Because you both released one egg. Simple enough, right? But that's where the statement just stops, and it leaves out the most important question of all. This is the real question. This is the key. Instead of just looking at the what, the low number, and accepting it, we need to be asking why. I mean, could the underlying reason for a lower egg count also be affecting the quality of the eggs you still have? Things like chronic inflammation, or maybe some autoimmune issues, or insulin resistance. These things don't just affect egg quantity. They can have a huge impact on egg quality. And that, right there, is where we should be putting our focus. And this brings us right to the heart of what we're talking about today, the huge critical difference between the number of eggs you have and the actual functional ability of those eggs to do their incredible job. Think of it like this. It's not just about how many joules you have locked in a vault, it's about how brilliant and flawless each individual joule is. Let's just put these two side by side for a second. On one hand, you've got quantity, your ovarian reserve. That's what an AMH test measures. And for the most part, it's set by your age and your genetics. It's pretty tough to change that number. But then on the other side, you have egg quality, which we're going to call metabolic competency. This is all about the egg's ability to actually work, to function. And here is the game-changing part. This is influenced by your internal health, by your lifestyle. This is the part of the equation you can actively, tangibly improve. So what in the world is metabolic competency? Well, an egg has a massive, massive job to do. It's not just a little suitcase for your DNA. It has to be healthy enough to let a sperm in, fertilize properly, and then, get this, it has to power all of the growth, all of the cell division for the first several days of an embryo's life, all by itself. It needs a tremendous amount of energy to pull that off. So, okay, if the egg is this little self-powered machine, what's actually running the engine? What's going on in the engine room? Let's take a closer look at the biological factors that give an egg the incredible power it needs to succeed. Just let that sink in for a moment. Every single cellular function, all the energy needed for an embryo to even begin its journey, it all comes from the mother's egg. It's an absolutely mind-blowing responsibility for one single cell, and that's precisely why the internal health and energy source of that one cell is so incredibly important. So how does this engine actually work? Well, there are a few key players. First up, you've got functioning mitochondria. The easiest way to think about these are as the egg's tiny batteries. The more charged up they are, the better. You also need lower reactive oxygen species. That's just a fancy term for less cellular stress and damage. And finally, you need decreased inflammation, which creates a much healthier, happier environment for that egg to do its thing. And right here, this is the pivot. This is the empowering part. You can't turn back the clock, and you can't magically make your body produce more eggs. But what you absolutely can do is influence the health and the quality of the eggs you already have by improving their power source. And that right there is what shifts the feeling from helpless to hopeful. Because now we have a target. We have something we can actually work on. Okay, so how do we turn all this science into a real, actionable plan? Look, this isn't about some miracle cure or magic pill. It's about solid, foundational principles that give all your cells, including your eggs, the fuel and the environment they need to function at their absolute best. The goal, when you boil it all down, is actually beautifully simple. Everything we're about to talk about comes down to two things: calming down inflammation in your body and boosting the energy production inside your cells. That's it. Every small, positive choice you make contributes directly to this goal. And here are the 4 pillars to get you there. Think of these as your core toolkit. Things you can use every single day. We're talking about eating an anti-inflammatory diet, moving your body, making sleep a real priority, and doing your best to avoid harmful environmental toxins. Let's just quickly touch on why each one is so vital. Diet is probably the biggest lever you can pull. When you focus on high fiber, plant-forward foods, you're feeding the good bacteria in your gut. And it turns out your gut health is directly, and I mean directly, linked to your hormonal health and your body's overall inflammation levels. It's also one of the best ways to fight back against insulin resistance, which we know can mess with hormone production right at the source, the ovary. The other pillars are just as critical. Movement is amazing because your skeletal muscles are like sponges for blood sugar, which helps manage glucose and takes a ton of pressure off your insulin system. Sleep? It's completely non-negotiable. That's your body's dedicated time to clean house and clear out inflammation. And finally, avoiding obvious toxins like cigarette smoke. I mean, that's just a no-brainer. You're simply removing things that are known to actively damage your eggs. So let's bring this all home. The whole point here is to reframe that initial scary diagnosis, to see it not as a fixed number, not as a verdict, but as a powerful call to action, a reason to zero in on all the things that you can control. You know, it's really not about one single choice making or breaking your fertility. It's about the sum of all your little daily decisions. Every anti-inflammatory meal, every time you choose to move your body, every good night of sleep. Think of it as a deposit into your cellular health bank account. They really do add up, and they matter so much more than you think. So here's the bottom line, the most important takeaway. Your fertility is so much more than a number on a lab report. It is a dynamic, living, biological system. And while you can't control every single part of it, you have a profound, incredible ability to influence its health and its function. The real power isn't in the number they gave you. It's in the choices you make, starting right now.